Okay, we're recording now. So, Justin, all
Great.
yours.
Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the June 19th board meetings. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
There's a second?
Who was the motion?
I made the motion, Steve, if you can hear me.
Tina.
Tina.
Okay. State your name.
Second.
All right.
Sound like Anasha seconded it. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Moving on to the second item, the two projects. The first one is the 701 River Street LLC. Steve, do you want to bring us up to speed or any updates on that?
Sure. So again, this is a modification of a previously approved agreement. Because of the fire, there were additional costs, additional purchases that had to be made again. So basically, we are extending or increasing the sales tax benefit. We are also putting $250,000 into the project as a project expense. And what we will do, as if you remember, we had an option to sell the property. It was a lease with an obligation to buy, and that was $100,000. $10,000 was paid on the annual payment, and that was credited towards the purchase price of $90,000, so that there's $90,000 outstanding. What we are going to do now is make that purchase price up it from the $100,000 purchase price, which is now $90,000, add the $250,000 in, and we're also going to the $10,000 credit. We're going to add that, subtract that from the payment. Boy, this is hard to explain. So that we're not going to give them the credit for the $10,000 that they already paid and add that back in, which is basically like a 2%. It covers our carrying costs, so that we're going to recover the money that we put into the project when the option is executed, which will probably be in about with a permanent financing. So that would be like in 2022. I hope and Justin always is much better at explaining these things than me. I think I covered that. So this is an 80 apartment unit building, 15,000 square foot of commercial. Also, the fee that's associated with this, which was about 30. Justin, you have that amount?
I believe it's 30,600. The increase in sales tax benefits is 306,000. So our corresponding 10% of benefit for sales tax only projects is 30,600.
Okay. And what we'd like to do is take that 30,000 and credit it towards basically Redburn is going to place a trail on the parcel that the IDA continues to own that runs from Middleburg to the Ingalls Avenue boat launch. And it's an orphan trail, but it's part of the future riverfront trail. So they're going to pave a 10-foot wide trail there for us, which will be designed by the city. And then we're going to credit this amount upon completion of the pavement towards that project. So we get a benefit for the city as well. And again, we've already received a fee from doing this project the first time, so we're just not really, we're crediting this fee towards that pavement.
Is the plan to maintain IDA ownership of that long term, or is there a process to transfer that to the city?
No, the plan, I think when it's complete, we'll transfer it over to the city.
Great.
So that'll be the whole riverfront portion.
Yep.
So I guess with that said, that's the description of it. I guess we open the public hearing.
I have a question. Are there ground lease payments? I saw something in the letter about ground lease payments.
So there were $10,000 a year payments when we did the original closing. They paid $10,000 for 2008 19 at the closing at the end of 2018. And then there was a $10,000 payment this year, but that was not made just because of the delay with the insurance repayments and the financial implications caused by the fire. Okay. So I guess if anybody asked to unmute, everybody is unmuted from the public, and I don't really see, and does anyone have a comment or unmute yourself and speak? Chat, what do I got in chat?
Do you have any history on these guys? Because it looks like they've been in business for only, well, these partnerships only been in business for like 5 years. I mean, could you give us a history on them or something? Or?
Sure. Actually, I can ask, probably best to ask Tom if you want to. Tom Rossi, you want to give a history on yourself? They've done a number of projects in Troy, in Schenectady, and in Albany, so they have a track record. Go ahead, Tom. Do you want to?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Is it working?
Yeah. This is Tom Rossi, principal of Redburn.
Hi. Yeah. Sorry, I had to switch to my phone because I was having issues too. But the background on Redburn, we started doing. You're correct in that we started doing real estate development about 5-6 years ago. There's 3 partners: myself, John Blackburn, and Jeff Buell. Before that, John and I went to RPI, graduated in 2004, had a startup called Bullx where we manufactured firefighter training equipment and fire extinguisher training systems. Started out of Troy, then we moved down to Albany for this is manufacturing business, and grew the company to 150 employees in 2012. We essentially kind of became like an international construction company where we're building firefighter training centers. So we're building like a city block that would catch on fire, and we built those all over the world: France, UK, Germany, China, Melbourne, Australia. We did stuff for FDNY and Randall's Island. So it became a little tricky, the business. We decided to sell the company, and that was when we transitioned to real estate. So that was kind of the 5 or 6 year track record. At that point, the company had 150 employees. Started doing real estate. We did the River Street Lofts in downtown Troy, the old Nelix building, and then we started doing a couple other projects around there. We did the Tilly Lofts in Waldorf Elite. And at the same time, Jeff, who was working, our third partner, Jeff was working at the United Group. Originally, he actually worked for the city under Mayor Tunjan, and then started working for United Group as a development. And he was one of the main developers on the City Station project in the city of Troy. Since then, we've been doing a bunch of different projects. Biggest thing is that we're doing the big project in downtown Albany, the Kenmore, the Nick, the CapRep Spiral Parking Garage. All of that stuff's wrapping up, and we were hoping that this would have been wrapped up by now, but obviously we had the fire. So we're almost up to, I don't know, on the professional staff, probably 40, 50 employees, and then construction and maintenance is the same thing, around 30, 40 people. And we're continuing to invest in Troy like we have been for kind of the long term. It's definitely, some of it has been under different entities or different businesses. But we're hoping to get this one wrapped up, and finally we've got a lot of the problems behind us on this one. So we appreciate your guys' help and support.
And Marshall,
can you say that again? It broke up. I'm sorry.
Marshall Ray, they're your partner in this?
Yeah, so it's a joint venture, and then Marshall Ray is a gentleman from Paz Health and Management. So they're out of Poughkeepsie. His name's Jacob Rekus and Ozzy Rekus, and they own and manage a bunch of, I don't know the exact number of assisted living facilities. So they have one they're building in Albany. They have a couple of them down in Westchester and Poughkeepsie. And that's all, like I said, assisted living.
Okay.
Does
Okay.
anybody have any other questions or comments regarding the 701 River Street LLC property project?
I
All
think you
right.
can-
Is there a motion to approve the modification to the agreement? That's
Actually, right now, you want to close the public hearing, and then
Okay.
we'll,
All right. Is there, so I have to do a motion to close that?
yeah, I believe the motion to close the public hearing in a second.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion. Sue?
Great. Is there a second?
I'll
Second,
it.
Stephanie.
Albert, oh, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Great. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Right, now that the public hearing is closed, do we have a motion to approve the modification to the agreement for 701 River Street?
I'll make the motion. Tina?
Do we have a second?
I'll second Sue.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Great. All right, Steve, you want to talk about the next project, the Troy Riverwalk?
Okay, so you're going to open the public hearing for Troy Riverwalk, which, again, as we discussed, this is 171 River Street. The project was approved previously with a 12-year pilot. If you remember from our last meeting, there was trouble getting financing. That 12-year pilot, they were the funder was not able to have the adequate debt service coverage ratios that they needed, and they came back with a request for a modification. We discussed that a little bit last month. So basically, the pilot that was sent out is now a 20-year pilot instead of a 10-year pilot. Right now, I should just note that the building's assessed at $90,000, so that is generating about $4,000 per year split between the city, county, and school district. This basically jumps that up to $23,000 in the first year, and so it's an 80% abatement for the first 3 years, and then it runs down in year 2041 to 5%, at which time it'll be paying $139,000 per year. So again, there's a net increase from the beginning over the 4,000, which is where it's going to remain. The number of apartments was reduced or increased from 14 to 18 market rate rentals with 22,000. It's a 22,000 square foot project and a 6,000 square feet of commercial space.
Sorry, those numbers got a little bit jumbled. The 20, did you say 23K the first year?
First, well, there's the two interim years, 20 and 21, where it's gonna continue to pay the current rate, and then in year one it jumps to 23,649.
That's the pilot payment, not the value.
That's the added payment. So actually, the total is 27,822. I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong column. Correct. So that'll jump from the 4,000 to 27,822.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're smaller apartments, so the likelihood that there's going to be any families in there is, while possible, I would say less likely.
Okay. And you said 80% the first year, and how much does it drop?
So it goes 80, it's 20 years, so it's 3 years at 80, 2 years at 70, 3 years at 60, 2 years at 50, 2 at 40, 2 at 35, and then it goes 30, 20, 20, 10, 10.
Okay.
So, you know, we'll start to see a significant amount in 20, we'll start to see significant numbers in years later in this decade, as opposed to just continuing to get 4,000. So I guess, is there anyone from the public that wants to make a comment? Okay, so I guess there's none, so
Yep. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make the motion. This is Tina.
I'll second it. This is Anasha.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Is there now a motion to approve the modification to the pilot agreement?
And I just, before we make the motion and the discussion, they're at this point maintaining the commercial space, although I guess there's a little more uncertainty about the timeline on that. Is that right?
On the commercial, they had a tenant they were working with. I guess Glenn is on Glenn's actually the funder, not the developer. There's uncertainty on who the commercial space user will be. But
They're still building it out.
yes,
Will that be a contingency on their financing to have one before they close?
well, we've got their funder. Their funder basically needs this pilot to approve.
See, that's the
Approve.
problem. When you say something like that, that's a problem. With my background, you telling me something like that, that's a real problem.
What exactly is the problem?
I guess this sounds like they don't have enough liquidity to back this up. That's what it sounds like.
This is Glenn Lundy from CPC. It wasn't necessarily it's a liquidity issue. They do have liquidity. It's an ongoing a longer term cash flow issue with in regards to why we were looking to extend the pilot. The borrower does have about $900,000 of liquidity of their own cash into the project to date, and they will be putting about $600,000 more into the project. So they'll have over about $1 million into it. So from our funding perspective, there is sufficient liquidity. The problem was the original pilot, when it was condensed, it leaped with the shorter term as it hit the different milestones and leapt up. The increase in the taxes from say year 5 to year 6 was a greater jump than their rents were. So while they were not in a negative situation, their cash flow debt service coverage did fall below the metrics that.
Was it below break even?
It was not below break even, no. But that's where we're coming from, and what that meant was the loan amount would need to be lowered, and then they are putting in much. They are going to need to either change the project or come in with more capital, and at some point, I guess it gets to a point where is the return on that investment, when does it flip to really not being a worthwhile project? I'm not sure if the developer is on, and he would have a little bit more on those metrics. So, but what I can say is, there is a fair amount of equity that's going into this project. It was really, again, more effective of the cash flow in future years that we were projecting out, that it was below the requirements that it would need to be at.
I was looking at the application. The questions on bankruptcies, judgments, and delinquencies. It didn't have it didn't say anything. Do these guys have anything like that?
No, we ran credit reports. Their scores were very good. They're all well above 700. We did not have any judgments, or there was nothing derogatory when we ran their credit.
I was just looking at the application. It didn't say anything with it, you know.
I don't know. I'm not sure what application you mean. Is this, I haven't seen, if this is the IDA application, I haven't seen that, but,
The IDA application didn't say anything about it, so. That's why I had a question about it.
okay. No, there was nothing derogatory. Their credit was in very good shape.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any other questions regarding the Troy Riverwalk project?
I just want to say thank you to Albert for bringing up those points. You start to question, as you did, if it isn't a worthwhile project, then what are they doing? But now
Well,
they're
yeah,
in.
this isn't a nonprofit organization, so they're doing this to make money, and it's just, I guess the way I'm looking at it, how does it benefit the community too? So it's not just the developer. How does it benefit the community? So.
And the way it benefits the community is over time, we will have a property back on the tax rolls, albeit at a lower tax than we would like to see, a higher tax than we're currently getting. Brings new commercial space in, new residents shopping at the stores in that area, and it's really, if you've been in that area, I mean, it's really a blighting influence on that area with the windows the way they are. So it's really a win for the city and for the developer to get this project going.
I got a question about the pilots. You just do a straight 20 years? I mean, you don't have like a 10-year with another 10-year option or something like that?
You do, well, for the financing, you can't do that. You have to, you have to go out 20 years more and more is what we're seeing. And while we always try to make them shorter, and we used to in the past make them shorter, given the tax rates in Troy and how high they are, you really need to stretch these out longer. And again, yeah, it generates revenue for the city. This is not a project that really increases public safety costs or anything too much, or probably shouldn't. And certainly the debt service, certainly the taxes cover that. Shouldn't have an impact on the school district. And so we're all in a better position. And unfortunately, they're increasingly going out to 20 years.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments or questions regarding the Troy Riverwalk project? Is there a motion to approve the modification to the pilot regarding the Troy Riverwalk project?
I'll make the motion. This is Tina.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second it, Sue.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Moving to the next item on the agenda, the supplemental project authorization. Steve, did we kind of go through that already, or?
We haven't. This is the first bite at the apple. Sorry. So this is a project. It's an 81-unit affordable housing project between First and River Street, across from the Lindy's / Iris Mist building, where that was a former manufacturing site. So it lines up with the comprehensive plan to bring housing down to that area and develop the waterfront, although it's near the waterfront, it's not on it.
Steve, just to confirm, this is the Post and Kill place?
Post and Kill place. So it's
Okay.
not really on the Post and Kill, it's one property away from the Post and Kill. So basically, I believe that Jesse Battis from Community Builders, the project's has a presentation he'd like to run through. And how do I do this? Share. Jesse, are you there?
Steve, you're sharing your screen.
That's nice. Good thing I don't have anything bad up there. How do I undo this?
I think you just click stop sharing where you click share screen.
Video.
Or at the top of the screen, there may be a stop sharing button for you.
So my whole screen went off to the right, and you guys are just in a row here. Hey Dylan, you any better at this than me? You want to come in here and help the old man out? Yes. How to make it zoom up? I lost everything. What's the down arrow on the bottom right?
That just expands it. What the hell is your control panel that you usually have for this thing?
It should be on the top of the sharing screen.
Not.
No.
The problem is that it's actually like frozen. Oh, wait, hold on. Right here. Stop. Here it is. There you go.
Let's make sure we remove this from the minutes.
There it is. And I don't want to be known as the guy that can't help him now. Is it still presenting? Oh, I want to
Make a motion to go into executive session, discuss personnel issues.
There he is, man. I'm supposed. Oh, right, it's on the list because it's on this screen right here. There you go. It's on your left monitor.
Okay, so wait, so now I gotta,
You're good. You're not presenting anymore.
okay, but now I gotta share a screen with the thing, so I don't do this wrong again.
I think he's got to do it on his
So
laptop.
Jesse will have to request to share the screen.
Here's what you gotta do. Go to the bottom over here.
Yeah.
Okay, because you gotta allow people to do it, so you don't want to. You click on that little arrow, and
Yeah.
it says one participant at a time, advanced sharing options,
Uh,
and allow all participants. You already have it on there, so. You're good.
okay, there we are. All right,
Cool.
thanks, Jesse. All yours.
Jesse, you're muted though.
I think he's got the mute on.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Excellent. So hi, I'm Jesse Batis. I am a senior project manager for Community Builders. Really excited to talk to you about Post and Co Place today. Thanks again for the opportunity. A little about TCB. We'll go through the agenda here, a little about TCB. We'll talk a little about the development concept, the rental program that we're proposing, a little status update for where we are, project schedule. I did provide some site plans for you to review. I don't think we should go through those today, but you'll be able to see a little of the elevations. We'll go through just the outline of our broad-based financial request. Obviously, that's subject to negotiation, some of the community benefits that we're bringing to the development and to the city, and then questions and answers. And I assure you, I'm trying to keep this punchy. I don't want this to be too long, but I do want to give you a little background on who we are. TCB was established in 1964. We are a nonprofit developer. We've been active here in the Capital District for nearly 20 years. We have over 500 employees in 15 states. We develop mixed income housing, mixed use developments. Our goal is really to be a catalyst for neighborhood change. So a lot of what we do is we look at underutilized sites, tough sites, sites with environmental conditions, sites that may require conversion, factories, things of that nature. And we try to bring in, real community benefit and then provide through our presence with our wraparound community life departments and other aspects to really put people in a strong position where they can achieve their full potential. Here in Troy, we're active with two developments. Development that I personally worked on was Monument Square Apartments that we acquired from the United Group back about 10 years ago now, where we did an $18 million acquisition rehab. We had done a geothermal system there, really big emphasis, strong emphasis on green development, and that is a senior and disabled facility. We also recently completed the conversion of the Meridian Furniture Warehouse into 67 apartments. That was a $22.2 million development, and the Troy IDA was involved in both of those developments. It's our hope that you'll support this deal as well. So Posting Kill Place provides 81 new units of rental housing, really trying a mixed income workforce approach here. The current TDC is actually lower than the initial application. We'll go through a little bit about where we are with the project, but we brought a contractor on board and the cost actually came in a little lower than what we anticipated. This is a new development on a 1.88 acre site. It is currently the Seward equipment rental facility. It's an industrial space. We're going to create a new green space, new play areas, parking, and the goal here is really to encourage more private development and more residential development. We think this area, as the city has identified, is really prime for more residential development and more growth in the neighborhood. And for TCB, our benefit really here beyond, being able to work more in Troy is very important to us. Being able to go deeper where we already are, doing bigger investments which allow us to provide for better property management, better oversight, and better economy of scale, where we can provide better investments that help catalyze this greater development here in Troy. So I want to stress that this is all proposed. We are working through the underwriting with HCR, but right now our current unit mix is as shown on the screen. Sometimes we get into AMIs and people, kind of their eyes glaze over. So what I did was provide just an approximate rent range for what these apartments would go for. So you're topping out for a 3-bedroom at about $2,000 a month. You're going as low for a studio at $782. There are 17 units here proposed for 80% of AMI, and then the balance at 50 or 60% of AMI. And we can linger on this for answers if there's.
Does that say 0-bedroom?
Studios. Those are studio apartments.
Gotcha.
Will these be Section 8s?
No, there's no Section 8.
Okay.
These are regulated through the Low-Income Housing Tax Credit Program. It's a little different than Section 8. It just sets a maximum for what your rents can be.
So to be clear, people could use Section 8 vouchers in them, but that's not the criteria, or?
Absolutely. We will take Section 8 vouchers, no problem, but there is no project-based Section 8.
Okay.
So a quick snapshot on where we are with the status of the project. We just recently selected a contractor. We're working through an LOI for their pre-construction services, which we're intending to use as the general contractor for the project. As I noted, their construction costs came in a little lower than what we had estimated, which is good news for us. We're set to close on the acquisition of the site in October. We're moving into the construction design development phase with the architect right now, which is the final step on design development for the plans. The project itself will include a fitness room, a community room, off-street parking, laundry, and a courtyard area. This area is located in a floodplain. The entire ground floor is developed as parking for that reason, with a very small entry vestibule. And all of the design was designed as flood resistant. So that ground floor parking allows for water to come in and out in the event of a major flood, things of that nature. But we've really taken into account where we are and tried to design it in a way that makes sense for this location. One other really important part of the project here is this is a very contaminated site. There are significant petroleum contaminants, heavy metals, and groundwater impacts here. And so what we did was we worked through the DEC to enter into their brownfield cleanup program. That program provides a significant source of financing for the project. So we're able to get tax credits to develop the deal in exchange for doing the site cleanup. That site cleanup hopefully provides it will provide an amenity for the city in so much as we're sure that there'll be no leaching, there's no issues on the site itself, and provide some financing for us in the process to build the deal. And we're really working towards getting our financing applications in now. That's the biggest piece. So we did submit an application for nearly $2 million to the Home Loan Bank of New York back in March. We're hoping to hear back any day now on whether or not that application was successful. We are waiting to submit an application to OTDA for funds that they have available, approximately $4 million. And we would like to immediately submit to HFA. We've already had this project in front of them. They provide the main financing for the project. So they're providing the mortgage financing and the tax credits that we need to make the project go. That really is the primary driver. We've worked very closely with Darren Scott at HCR, and they're working really hand in hand to try to get this deal moving. So a quick look ahead on the schedule. We are working to try to get the pilot secured from the IDA here, as well as get our applications in as soon as the state starts releasing funding applications. Right now, their RFPs are all being held up, pending what's going on with the budget situation at the state. But the hope is, and we do anticipate that there will be funding available this year, regardless of the murkiness for where we sit today. As we move into the fall and we secure our funding allocations, we would wrap up the development of our construction documents and close with our construction contract. And then the goal here is at the end of the year, we're closed and we're in the ground. Again, this is all pending on getting these financing sources to commit, and it will depend on when the RFPs come out and when the state makes decisions. Again, I did provide a package of drawings for you to review. I don't know that we have to go through them in any depth, but happy to answer any questions if you have them. We can go through that separately. And what are we asking for? So initially, we proposed a 5% EGI pilot. We understand that's open to negotiation. It's just our starting point for something we want to talk about. Anything that we move forward with needs to make sense for the city, obviously, and needs to make sense for TCD. We're also requesting that sales and mortgage tax exemption. Again, very important for us in order to make this deal viable as a nonprofit building affordable housing with state money to try to keep the costs as low as possible. But the community benefits we think are really significant. I already mentioned the environmental remediation. The job creation, we're expecting up to 250 construction jobs. This is a pretty large project, a lot of cleanup. We'll have 4 permanent positions in maintenance and management. That supports our already existing footprint of maintenance and management folks that work here in the city. $34.6 million brought into the city. That brings workers with them that shop at your local stores, brings that kind of economic investment that we're hoping catalyzes and spurs more development. And just one point is every public dollar leverages more than $1 in private investment. And we think that's an important thing to note as we look at these things, because we know that on the face of it, we are asking for a reduction in taxes, and it can be controversial. But our hope here is that we're providing enough benefit here that private investment really spurs it, and it's money well spent by the city. Like I said, I tried to keep it punchy and short so we could leave time to talk. So thanks again for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
About how much in financing are you looking at?
We are looking at, and I'll tell you, I'm going to stop my share. On as-of-right financing, we're using, just to give you a quick idea of how these programs work. There are 2 types of tax credits you can get from HCR. There's a competitive tax credit, that's called a 9% tax credit, and there's a tax credit that's as-of-right, which is called a 4% tax credit. This project, because we have so much financing available from the brownfield cleanup, we can make it work with that 4% credit. It's as-of-right, but it's less lucrative, so it's not as competitive, but we can get it without, we're pretty sure we can get that without much work. That tax credit will provide over $10.5 million for the development of the project. The brownfield tax credits, which are also, we're working through the process with the state, but that is, again, as-of-right tax credit based on the level of contamination, is another $6.3 million. The discretionary funding that we've applied for is about $4.4 million from OTDA, about $1.8 million from the Home Loan Bank, and about $6 million in soft money from the state. And that makes up the sources.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Tina.
Sure.
Who did you say you were waiting for approval on the $1 million amount, $1 million amount?
It's, we're waiting to hear from the Home Loan Bank for 1.8 million.
Okay, Home Loan Bank, okay.
Yeah, it's a private consortium of banks that provide funding for affordable housing projects.
And if that doesn't come through, what would replace that amount there? Or would you go
It
to?
would, we expect it would be soft money from the state.
And would there be anything else attached to that money from a new person that should be borrowing from? I know they all have stipulations.
No, because right now we're just anticipating the 6 million to come from the state. If we were to have to increase that by 1.8 or whatever million, it would be the same restrictions, the same regulatory agreement would apply, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have questions for Jesse?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one more. The fact that there's only 3-bedroom, you didn't see a need for more 3-bedroom apartments?
We tend to structure the apartments based on just kind of how they lay out, as well as how it scores out with the state. Right now, this is just how it laid out with how we put it in the building. We certainly could look at that again, but primarily we look at the layout based on really scoring metrics. The state wants to see the maximum number of affordable units getting put out there, and that really drives some of how they skew their scores.
Anash, did you have a question before?
Yeah, I had a couple questions. So I know you said the project cost is going to drop a little bit, but I don't have what those numbers are. So just some sort of basic math here. We're looking at the 34 million divided by 81 is $427,000 per unit, which is a lot more than any residential unit costs in that neighborhood. And certainly if you multiply that by 3 and look at a 3-story brownstone, there's not a single one you couldn't buy and renovate for $1.2 million around there. And so I'm sort of coming at this from a couple angles in terms of why these projects are happening with this massive concentration in a neighborhood where, it's a residential neighborhood with housing stock that needs renovation. And if you're going to be investing $34 million into that neighborhood, you'd spend a lot less, make better units, and do better for the neighborhood by investing it into existing housing stock. I know that's not what the state does most of the time, but I know you have done some more distributed housing development in the past. And I'm trying to understand why the logic here in the concentrated housing that I know HUD's trying to move away from. I know everybody's trying to move away from the idea of these large concentrated housing into more integrated into the neighborhoods. So I'm trying to understand why this project is set up this way.
So great question. 2 big questions in that we can unpack. The first one is the cost per unit. Yeah, on the face of it, it's a lot, but one thing to note is about 70,000 per unit just relates to the cleanup of the site. The site is very dirty. And so if you take that out, you back that out of that number, you're really more in that 350,000 per unit range. Now, maybe that still sounds expensive on its face for the neighborhood. But the way that I can tell you for, the design for the flood preparedness, we leave a lot of floor area on the table in order to develop that parking area and develop it to flood preparedness and storm resistant development. So there are a lot of costs that go into this that are associated with really, the site being viable. Now, in terms of the concentration of units, HUD's really, their move has not been against developing buildings. Their move has been against concentrating, all Section 8, all extremely low income individuals in a single building. For management purposes, actually, the scattered site model is not preferable, and it's one that tends to drive a lot of costs on per unit basis up because you've got, You know, let's say we develop this in 6 rehab buildings, just as an example. You've got 6 separate maintenance contracts, 6 separate landscaping contracts. You've got individual units that are all going to require attention for HVAC purposes, things of that nature. So you tend to get better economy of scale when you build in a more concentrated and compact development way. Does that make sense? I understand your concept and your issue, but just that's why we tend to develop this way. It's to try to keep it affordable.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you in terms of the management. How do those numbers work out in terms of what's the 20-year management cost on this as compared to the construction cost?
Do you mean on a per unit basis?
Sure.
So per unit on management costs, we anticipate this will be about $7,300 per unit. If you were, I don't have the numbers for what the alternative would be like in front of me, but I can tell you that the scattered sites tend to run, you know, at least 1,000 per unit above that. It can be more than that. So that reduces our ability to get permanent mortgage financing, which I didn't really touch on in the broad overview, but we're getting a $4.3 million permanent mortgage on this deal as well. So the goal here is maximize the perm mortgage, be able to take on as much private debt as we can so that we reduce the amount of public subsidy we need from the state.
Okay. I mean, just in terms of upfront costs, though, I mean, what did you see on your scattered sites in terms of upfront cost per unit? When you're building this kind of housing, do you have to build it to a standard that ups that cost to a comparable $300,000 per unit? Because again, you know, I'm not seeing 3-unit buildings in that neighborhood go for $900,000.
You know, it's a broader question, and it's not something I can just answer in a vacuum because every site is different. You know, if we have a flat site and it's clean and I just come in and it's a slab on grade and I build it up, yeah, maybe you can get that at, you know, $200,000 a unit. You know, that new construction cost, meeting these energy efficiency requirements that we're going through. This development is working through enterprise green communities. There's a solar component on the project as well. You know, reducing carbon footprint, looking at recycled materials. All these things kind of add up together to create what that critical mass is that gets you to the cost. But the goal here is over time, it will be a less expensive building to operate. It will be more environmentally friendly, less of an impact on carbon usage. And, you know, all these things kind of come together to get to where the cost is.
Thanks, Anasha. Great questions. Anybody else have questions for Jesse?
I just have a comment because just hearing about this to this degree for the first time, when you walk through that neighborhood or drive through that neighborhood, so much of the charm has to do with the fact that it is very residential with occasional little stores and the people on the street. And people are what make that neighborhood, that area great. And to think of parking as you walk those blocks would change that whole vibe when you go through there. And I think it would really not bring a good feel to that area.
So, you know, that's a great point, right? And when we worked through this with the planning board, the goal there was to create a really positive streetscape where our design on the street does not just look like it's not just a parking lot. You know, we have a good facade there, and I can even, give me 1 second, I can pull up the rendering again. Well, I'll speak to it and then we can talk about it later. So our goal here in the design, we work to try to activate some corners there's some seating space that we had provided. And then obviously we have this large interior courtyard that we developed. And the goal there is to provide, you know, seating, green space, and really make it so that even though, yeah, there's a parking garage around some of the base of it, you still have outdoor seating. And the other thing to note again is, you know, right now this development is a commercial warehouse where there's not a lot of life out of it, people coming in and out. This will provide more of that neighborhood feel. You're getting more people in the neighborhood. You're providing more of, I think, what you're looking for, which is life on the street.
So how tall is the building? How many stories?
4 stories.
4 stories? Okay.
Does the rental prices, Tina, include any utilities such as cable or internet or the heating or electricity?
It is net of the utility costs associated with the rent. We give what they call utility allowance. So the way that the state and that HUD calculate these rents is you come up with what the base rent that somebody could afford is, and then you deduct a certain amount for what the air conditioning usage would be, what the heat usage would be, what the, so on and so forth. But right now the plan includes water and sewer.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions for Jesse?
What are I don't know if this is for Jesse or Steve, but how many people work at Seawork now?
I don't have that information. I don't know if Steve has it.
Steve, are you there?
Sorry, I was not muted. Mute. I worked with them to try to locate them to a location in South Troy and was unable to do so. I think the numbers are, hang on a sec, I have it, what it is. I think it's around 20, and I could be off. Keyword. No, I don't have it. But I think it was around 20 employees that unfortunately we did lose or are in the process of losing. 15, they have 15 employees.
Okay. So we're getting rid of 15 and getting 4 long term. And, again, this is a neighborhood that had, the history of it anyway. And I think the plan as the comprehensive plan as well is to maintain a good, tight residential neighborhood with adjacent commercial space that provides jobs. So it's a live-work community where people can walk to work in the flex space or whatever gets developed along that area. And so, the increasing concentration of housing, I guess I'm just not seeing where that provides industrial development, as the name implies. But so it goes. No.
Yeah, I can't really give you a good answer on that. It's on the bus line. As we see development occur south of, we have a lot of interest right now, but it's still years away from having waterfront development down there with job creation. But in the future, there will be industrial development in that area or commercial development.
And, just from my perspective, I mean, a lot of what we do here when we come into some of these neighborhoods is being first money in, bringing in state money to do some pretty significant work. It does catalyze the neighborhood. And, we did this in a lot of communities we worked with. Often we target redevelopment of public housing as mixed use, mixed income, different types of development. And then you see those out parcels, the areas around it, the adjacencies really do get developed by private investment.
Jesse, you said your company did Tapestry on the Hudson. Were you involved with the Hudson Art House next door?
I was not. That was a different developer.
Okay.
That was the Vecino group. The same group that's doing 444 River is the same developer that did the art house.
The Marvin Neitzel building.
And, just a quick note here, we've worked with a lot of local groups, Boys and Girls Club, Unity House. We're trying to potentially place a capital car share here. Pioneer Bank is supporting this project. Assemblyman McDonald and Senator Breslin both provided support letters, and we have been working with the Riverside Neighborhood Association as well, who did provide a support letter. So, you know, we're hoping that as we keep working on this and we keep making these connections and inroads with the community, we can keep, working together with these different partner agencies.
Pioneer Bank supporting it? Really?
They sponsored our application to the Home Loan Bank.
Really, yeah.
That's an interesting reaction.
And as I stated before, so we've got a long ways to go on the negotiation, just based on public safety costs that I'm seeing for other projects like this. I think that we're going to really have to do some negotiation on what we expect to get for a pilot to make sure the city's not losing money on this deal.
We're certainly open to the conversation, Steve. We understand, as I said in the beginning, the deal needs to work for the city. And, we're open to figuring out what that number is.
I have another question, please. This is Tina. Jesse, after the initial group of people for construction are gone, how many people will this project actually employ to maintain the building and so on?
At least four dedicated staff in the building. That doesn't include, we could potentially look at the staffing, and this happens. We say another guy, and we figure it out, and we try to figure out how we can bring another person on, or we bring in staff from a neighboring development. We have a development over in Cohoes. We have 2 developments here in Troy. We have developments in Albany, Schenectady. The goal here is if we need that coverage, the more buildings, the more units we get, the more we can support our management and, provide that coverage.
Do you have a local management company, or you hire somebody within the Capital District?
We're a manager as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Which building in Cohoes were you referring to?
We purchased about 66 units, also through United Group, at about the same time we did Monument Square. So there's a row of buildings over on North Mohawk Street. We built a little community building at the corner at 2 North Mohawk. And then a bunch of other developments. There's some on Olmsted, there's some on Fountain Place, one on White Street, one on Lancaster Street. That's scattered site. But that's a good example also of a deal where the operating costs on the scattered site have been significantly higher than if it was a compact development, because we've run into a lot of issues there with heating systems, individual heating systems, and costs to do these kind of maintenance things. It's just much higher on a per unit basis.
So those are the old mill buildings you're talking about, right?
It's actually what they used to call the tenements on the maps.
Right.
The buildings that stand for the mills.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments, questions for Jesse?
Based on what you said, for somebody to go into a neighborhood and say, there's a site that's contaminated and in a flood zone, let me build housing there, makes no sense to me.
Well, we're removing the contamination and we're building to flood preparedness.
I would think there'd be more creative ways to use that land. That's just my opinion. It seems like forcing something in to make it work for what end result?
And to be clear, it's not vacant land, it's current industrial use land.
All right, well, I think everyone makes solid points here. If anyone else has any other questions or comments, please, by all means.
Obviously, we're just starting negotiation here.
Yep.
The 5%, what does that work out to per unit in terms of how much revenue, and I guess the revenue again would be shared between the city, county, and school district. Is that correct, Justin or Steve?
Yeah, the pilot revenue is required to be distributed pro rata to the,
Right.
in this case, the Troy City School District and the county and the city itself. These kind of projects typically result in a structure that includes a host community agreement and a pilot agreement that serves to balance the distribution to the city in a way that is responsive to the extraordinary costs these projects sometimes bring. The extra or supplemental fire, EMS, or any police services are all borne by the city. So Steve's careful in these discussions to make sure that the city's interests are met when the pilot struck up.
I'm sorry, I disconnected there for a minute. Was a question asked? I came in halfway through Justin's answer, and I don't know how we got there. Sorry.
The core of the question is, at the 5%, what's the per unit revenue on the pilot?
And Jesse, did you have an answer on what that exact amount was?
No, I can answer that. It's about 600 per unit.
$600 a year?
Per unit per year, yeah.
Yeah.
So
And-
like neighboring local landlords who've been in the neighborhood for years and own a 2-unit building are paying $8,000 a year for 2 units, so 4,000. This is paying 600.
And again, as I mentioned, I was analyzing the costs at their other 2 projects, and there's the public service costs. They're fairly significant. You know, eating up most of that amount. So you know, they can be anywhere from 350 to 470 per unit. So I think we're way off on what the pilot would have to be to make this work. But again, I haven't really looked at numbers with them or discussed any of this at this point yet.
Okay. And I mean, again, the rents in that neighborhood, it's not like these are rents being proposed are particularly cheap compared to what landlords that are paying full taxes are already providing to people in that neighborhood. So I'm a little unclear what the value is here, but we'll I guess it's the start of negotiations.
Right. Like we said, this is just the beginning, so a lot of questions, a lot of comments, some concerns. But Jesse, I want to thank you for presenting that. And yeah, if no one else has any other questions or comments?
I just have one. The community, you're a non-for-profit, right? Community
Correct,
buildings?
yes.
Okay. Is your property management company a subsidiary? Is that for-profit?
No, also nonprofit.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I see you're charging about 3% on management fee for the project.
Yes, the management fee really, I hate to use the beast. You know, it continues to provide for the overhead for the organization. We use it to invest. You know, we're not like a for-profit developer where we're sending a lot of money and we can use it and make strategic investments and get the cash flow over time. We take the money that we earn and we use it to invest in the organization and invest in new deals. So really the property management fees that we earn from all these different developments are really just going into our overhead and to make sure that we can provide quality property management.
Okay.
All right.
I'd like to make just one more comment. This is Tina. If possible, I'd like to see the rents a little bit lower. And I don't know if you have any type of a built-in cap on raising the rents each year. I would hate to see it be out of control of people that could actually pay that, because that area really doesn't support really high rents for having a lot of things to do in the area. What I mean is like very attractive things to do, and in fear of people being driven out because of the high rents, and then it becoming a building in the neighborhood they might not want, or even abandoned. Especially, you know, the 3-bedroom one that goes up to $2,000 a month. That's pretty pricey. I don't know who can afford that. You can pay your utilities on top
Keep in
of
mind,
it.
keep in mind, Tina, if you got lower rents, they're going to be looking for a bigger pilot.
Well, even if it were private money. Just worry
You know,
about
I'll
it.
be honest, personally, Tina, you know, and thank you for the comment. I think it's a good one. We do like to try to provide deeper affordability, but I think that, you know, our history with the city of Troy and our history in some other areas is they want to see more of a mix where you're bringing in those lower incomes are being supplemented with higher income folks that can provide for the development you're trying to build. You know, this rent structure is not set in stone. It's something that we're going to be reviewing with HCR. It's something that we're going to be trying to structure in a way that does maximize our scoring when they look at our application. So, you know, I'll stress that the rents aren't set 100% yet, but our goal here is to really have it provide some mixed income, which I think is more in line with at least what I've heard, what the city is looking for.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. That's really what we were looking for, is a greater mix of market rate. This is a large percentage of 50% and smaller as you go up from there.
All right. Nasha, Albert, anybody else have any other comments or questions?
Okay.
All right. Well, Jesse, thank you very much for presenting that and answering all those questions, and appreciate that.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you. So, moving on, we don't need a motion or anything, right? It's just moving
Yeah, you
on.
do. There's a initial project resolution, so you're going to need a initial project resolution.
Okay. Is there a motion for the initial project resolution for?
Sorry for the noise if it's disturbing anybody. They're jackhammering my sidewalk out here. Sorry,
All right.
I can't hear you guys.
All right. Maybe no one heard me, so I'm just going to repeat it. Is there a motion to approve the initial project resolution for the Post and Kill Place project?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Do we have a second?
I'll second. Stephanie.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I'll just say, I think it seems like we're too far apart in terms of value right now. I don't know that it's worth Stephen Dillon's time on the negotiation floor, but I'd like to see a new application that's a little closer to the value that we need to see before we start negotiation. But obviously that's up to the board, so I'll vote no.
Noted.
I agree with Anasha. I'm voting no as well.
I vote no. Tina.
So we have a motion to approve by Albert and a second by Stephanie, and opposing is Anasha, Susan, and Christina.
And Justin, I abstain. I missed the majority of the presentation.
Richard abstains. Thanks. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Is that Jesse?
Yes. So just so I'm clear, so the process would be provide a separate proposal that is has a different valuation on it, and then we would come back and discuss rather than with negotiation.
Tina, can you mute?
Sorry, you may not have been able to hear me. My question is just related to the process. if the motion is denied, the intent would then be we'd have to resubmit with a different valuation, and then we would entertain another motion rather than moving right into negotiation. That's how this would work here.
Boy, I don't know what we would get that would be a different application.
I think it just as a quick point of order, this is Justin Miller. First, can Tina mute by any chance? Because it's crushing all the other audio.
Steve, you as the administrator may be able to mute her. Tina, did you hear that? We're asking.
Yeah. Tina, we're asking if you can mute your microphone.
As soon as I find her, she's muted. Okay.
And just as a quick point of order, typically applications are filled out and contain the basic project data, project cost, sources of financing, jobs. We typically counsel people or suggest that they don't make an opening salvo in that public document for negotiation purposes. It kind of frustrates this initial discussion. It's generally okay to accept an application if it's complete. And then the discussions continue after that in terms of where a pilot may go and what it may look like. So without diving into it, I don't know that we're at a point where we can even digest whether 5% of what's called shelter rents is something that is tolerable, or something more like 10% of shelter rents, which is industry standard, might be a place to start. For Steve Strikeman's purposes, I mean, maybe we can table this initial resolution and start again next month without putting the pilot numbers up front. Really, we want to digest the project in its physical manifestation, and then the project budget, the jobs, and the financing sources, so we know what it is, and then the board can direct staff to, when the time is appropriate, digest financials and bring a pilot proposal back to the board for consumption when a public hearing is appropriate, most likely September or October. So just that's a little bit of background. Perhaps starting with that in the application might have been a little bit of a stumbling block.
So we have a motion on the floor. I don't know if anyone wanted to table it or whether we're going to continue the vote on it.
Right now, we
Justin,
do have
Justin, what does it looks like as it is right now? This would just get voted down. What does that do in terms of their ability to come back in the future?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. Yeah, perhaps if it's tabled now, it would send a better message for continued, constructive conversations with Jesse and his team at the Community Builders.
If we table it, that would also give Rich a chance to review it. Should be helpful, I think.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so seems like we're looking to table this project resolution for Post and Skill rather than approving or opposing it.
So there's a motion on the floor. Does
So
that
I
need
think
to be?
we were mid-vote. I guess I'll make a motion to reconsider. I don't know what the process there is, but we'll go back a little bit and I'll make a motion to table.
Okay. So we have Anasha with a motion to table. Is there?
I'll second Sue.
So
Second,
what are you looking for? More final numbers?
I think over the course of the next month, Steve and Jesse can follow up discussions, perhaps dial in the pro forma numbers. Again, we might be a little preliminary if they haven't gotten their rents nailed down 100% and their financing is still in flux. Maybe we're a little premature and we can come back to the board with a more detailed proposal to keep the ball rolling in the next month or so.
Okay.
I know that my comment period is over. Can I just, one more question here? You know, the goal here was to get this project just introduced so that we could start this negotiation on where the numbers are. The goal here is, as well, is to try to maintain a schedule with the state and with our applications. So, you know, I would just request if we can consider having this application reviewed and approved so we can move to negotiation with Steve. There's always the opportunity for the board to vote it down if they decide that the deal that Steve's tried to struck, or Steve and I can figure out, is something that's not favorable. This is really, at least my understanding was just to get us into the process so we can start that negotiation. And, you know, I'll apologize, I think, for putting numbers on the table early. You know, we've gotten anywhere from 5 to 10% on these pilots, generally speaking. So we just kind of started with 5%, which is what we've seen in some places. You know, and I was very upfront, I think, in the proposal that that's just an opening. So I don't know if there's any consideration by the board, if you can think about potentially approving this, and then we can just move to that negotiation rather than tabling, coming back next month, potentially approving, and then still negotiating.
And I would just echo, this is Steve. I think if we table this, then there's not a lot of clarity on where we're going forward, because I'm still not really authorized to negotiate. And I think you've sent a strong message here that you're really not in favor of this project as it is, and there's certainly time to come back to it at a future meeting. And there'll be a public hearing at a future meeting as well. I just think that a table, I'm not sure where I'm going to go over the next month.
Gotcha. Okay, then we'll continue with the vote, I guess.
So, yeah, with the original vote, do we have to do a new vote then, Justin?
I would just say, ask again, all opposed, all in favor.
So is there, we had a motion to approve the initial project resolution for Post and Skill Place. I believe it was Albert and I don't know who the other person was.
Me.
Tina.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. And opposing was Anasha, Christina,
And me. So,
was that, and Sue, yes. And Richard did not sustain, yes. All right, since we have a motion to approve, we have 3 opposing, but there is a motion to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the initial project resolution, Post and Skill Place, has a motion for approval.
But it's, so the vote, did anybody change their vote, or was it still?
Who were the ayes?
How many ayes were there?
2, I'm assuming?
I'm an aye.
Stephanie's an aye. Okay. Okay. So I guess the motion fails. I'll just, well, and opposed was Anasha, remains Anasha, Sue. I'm sorry. Who was the third no?
Tina.
Tina was a no. Stephanie was an aye. Albert was a
Aye.
aye. And I got one more, don't I?
It was
Richard
me, but I abstained.
Abstained, yeah. Okay. So the motion doesn't carry. So now I'll ask you guys, Justin, do we do a motion? Well, it's already failed.
At this point, we can bring an updated application back to the board next month if the applicant wants to. It's in effect a tabling, kind of same result. And certainly to the extent that Jesse's willing to have some discussions with Steve and staff to get that dialed in a way that the board is comfortable, we can bring it up next time if you'd like.
Okay.
All right.
I'll be in touch with you, Jesse.
All right. I want to thank the board for their time, and hopefully we can continue this conversation next month. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, Steve, the Executive Director's Report.
Yes. And I'm just going to tell Bernie, who I see is on there, that your application project was approved. You do not need to stay on if you do not wish to. Let's see. IDA, what do I got here? Just a couple of updates here. I'm going to spend $625 to send Danae to an economic development course as she steps up her work with the IDA and the actual outreach. I want to have her do a little more, have a little more training in the economic development field. Mary Ellen, we had an upgrade for QuickBooks that we had to do yesterday because of a computer problem, and Mary Ellen paid for that out of her own credit card. It was $323.95. Thank you, Mary Ellen. So we're going to reimburse her with a check on that as soon as possible. Also, because of this ongoing COVID crisis and my inability to have a good computer set up, and who knows what's going to happen in the future, I would like to spend about $1,600 to $2,000 to buy two good quality, or two laptops, just so that we have them for me and Danae in case we have to be remote again, so that we can do these from home. Let's see. I spoke with City Station North this morning, and they are still delayed on their project, but hoping to move forward in August. It's still not a dead project. They have a funder interest. Everybody's just kind of on hold right now everybody's just on hold right now because of the COVID crisis. And that's it. For the Executive Director's Report.
Great.
What does that bring us to?
Steve, you going with Mac or PC?
Not Mac. I think we're going with probably HPs or something.
Good man. Good man.
Good man. Yeah. My daughter won't like that. That's not her fault. Okay.
Do we need a motion to approve that, Steve, or?
I don't. Justin, do I need a motion to get 3 quotes for pricing? I think I just have to let the board know, unless you want to nix me on that. I think they just have
That'd
to be
be
in the
fine. I would solicit some prices, but as long as the board's comfortable with the appropriation, you can proceed with the lowest and most effective cost you can find.
Okay.
All right. Is anyone opposed of obtaining those quotes of what Steve just presented? Or repaying the expenses that have already been paid?
And taking that course for Danae.
Development course.
It's fine.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen, you're up for the financials, please.
Okay, the first report is the statement of financial position. As of 6:30, our total assets stand at $735,000, with $502,000 of those assets in cash. Our liabilities are $61,000, leaving us with a fund balance of $674,000. There's no real changes to the statement of financial position. The next
I have a question, Mary Ellen.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
At the top when it says budget, is that year-to-date budget number or the annual budget?
It is the annual budget
Okay.
On the statement of activity.
Okay.
And onto that report, for the month of June, we have $1,000 deficit, and the only source of revenue this month was interest. The expenses were about $1,200, and they were no out of the ordinary expenses. So we didn't have a lot of activity. Any questions?
Just one on the balance sheet, the payables and the receivables and the payables.
Okay.
Do you have an aging report for those, or?
I don't typically bring those to the meeting. What I can tell you is the receivables, the majority of those receivables, 61,000 of those are pilots that have not yet been paid. And
Okay.
so those receivables would actually be paid back to the city,
Okay.
which is why you see the receivable and the payable amount.
Okay. All right.
Are those receivables past due or just?
They
Yeah, how,
are past due.
how long?
All of these pilots were due on 2/1, and they started accruing late fees as of 3/1. The
Okay.
city is aware that these pilots are not yet paid, and they are also looking for those.
Okay.
There isn't any sort of state moratorium on that, those, like they're, you know, what they have for and that sort of thing. They are required to pay on time, correct?
They are required to pay on time. I don't know, Justin, you can help me speak to this, if the city is being more understanding based on the situation we're going through right now.
The city doesn't maintain the contracts, we do. So if you could send me a trip report on the companies that are past due. If they're typically over 60, we want to send them a letter. So, and then and typically that letter is copied to their lenders, and Justin Neto will kind of laugh at this, but that typically gets people's attention a little bit faster than you calling them. So if you can send me a trip report, we could send them a quick, a little bit of a Dunning letter and get those up to date.
Okay. Any other questions?
All right. Thanks, Mary Ellen, sorry. Is there a motion to approve the financials and sending the updated report to Justin Miller so that, you know, we can send out some letters to the parties that are out that currently owe on their payments for the pilot agreement? Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll make the motion, Sue.
Yeah, I would definitely second that.
Second. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thanks, Mary Ellen.
And I'll follow up with them again. I think that was related to the closing of Hudson Valley and the loss of students at Morrison. So I'll follow up with the owner.
Great. We talked about a lot of business today, Steve. Is there any old or new business that needs to be discussed?
I think we're on item 9, adjournment.
All right.
I'll make a motion.
Anasha made a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Stephanie second. Any opposed? There's no other questions. Then there's a motion for adjournment.
We're adjourned. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good seeing everyone.
Have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Bye. Everybody take
All right.
care.
Bye, everyone.